Newsfirst, NewsLine with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Well, jolly good morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo and broadcasting on TV1, part of the Capital Maharaja Group. And a wonderful morning to you. And this morning we have a legal expert, a senior legal expert, to comment on something. The byword is pending. It's pending everything. Pending good governance, pending litigation, pending investigations, and pending shame. Pending elections too. Pending shame. Good morning to you, Mr. Gomin Dayasiri.
Good morning. Pending and bending.
Pending and bending, yes, bending the rules.
The bending the rules, pending, and the public servants are also bending too low.
Is that a direct result of the Lalit Veeratunga case?
Yes, but I see Lalit Veeratunga very much in the news with the former president once again.
Indeed. I met him as well. One feels sorry.
Well, I have no sympathy to those who have been found guilty of corruption and bad practices.
Yes.
I mean, if you sympathize...
But Mr. Dayasiri, sorry to interject here, but the problem is, shall we examine what would have happened to Mr. Veeratunga and his pension had he stood up to MR and said, no, dear President, can't do this. You must go to Cabinet, you must follow procedure. I can't be distributing this 600 million of SIL ready. No, I'm sorry, I can't. What would have happened? First of all, let's be practical.
Let's be practical. I will be. And let's look at it this way. President Rajapaksa is a man who would have listened if advice is given. I have given him several times advice.
But you weren't working directly for him.
No, I don't work for him. But even whether you work or not, if you give him advice, he takes it. These politicians, some of them are stupid. They don't know rules. And it's the duty of the...
Was Rajapaksa stupid?
I think Rajapaksa is also very stupid because he was really the man. He could have come, he had left the politics as a hero, but he is now in a different league when he leaves politics. But coming back to the Lalit Veeratunga episode, I think he as a public servant, as the senior most public servant, had a duty to advise the president correctly, and the president would have then been put to task whether to follow or not. But there's no evidence that the president asked him to do this. It may well be that Lalit Veeratunga, as always, is belated, and he may have tried this device to get over.
I hear what you say, but I also know what I read and what I heard. Mahinda Rajapaksa said he gave those instructions.
I don't know whether he did say that.
He always said it on television. He said it, he was coming out of the prison.
Yes, he did give instructions, but that was long before the election process started, and he was entitled to give elections.
So why wasn't this Mr. Veeratunga? I'm sorry, I'm not holding a candle to him, but I'm asking you a question. Why wasn't he not charged under the election rules then?
He could have been charged, but he was charged under this. But I would say that he could have been charged under election law because this was directly during the election period. But the question is, the president did ask him, you're correct, but that was long before the election period started. And
so it's his fault?
No, it's not his fault because he is entitled to deal with the president's fund as he cares to. Mr. Veeratunga is the chief executive officer and he must warn him and guide him properly along the line. He didn't.
But I still feel sorry for him.
Yes, sorry, you will feel...
I feel sorry for him because the judge said, only because of this, okay, because the judge said, acknowledged that Mr. Veeratunga didn't benefit personally.
He did not. I agree with the judge. He did not, and he's no crook, he's no rogue, but he's just a public...
38 years in public service.
A public servant who was too servile to a government and to its leaders.
But wasn't that servility a product of political power? An accumulation of overwhelming power?
I know very well that when the civil servants were there in the old days, they didn't bend and bow. They took the politicians online and guided them correctly, and always politicians did accept guidance if it was offered. Today I think many of the faults lie with the public servants. They don't advise the president properly or the executive officers, and they get into trouble, and the cost of it is because you have servile public servants looking for benefits all the time through the executive.
So on that mode, if we move on, what should we do? Should we do the the matter that everyone's talking about, or appears to be talking about.
All right. As
The
you like.
local government election.
Yes, that's a farce.
What is this business, Mustafa versus Mustafa?
Oh, I think I would say, oh Mustafa was, oh Mustafa. I
mean
Mustafa,
old Mustafa?
Not old, that song, oh Mustafa.
Oh, I see, okay.
Now I
but
think,
young Faisal Mustafa has said that there's no such thing. He was not party to this.
I don't know who is a party, but he's really the last line of defense for the government, and he has to take the responsibility of holding elections in due time.
Now
and
what's happening now that they've gone to court?
Now what is happening is most of the elections could be stopped because there would be litigation, and litigation will have to continue its entirety of it, and that might take time. But remember, there are some elections that are on, and those are larger constituencies which might be very favorable for the government. Because the government has not contested those constituencies, and those constituencies uncontested may be in the government bag. So the result might be favorable to the government when they look at the few limited number of constituencies that will go to work elections, like maybe the Colombo Municipal Council and many of the municipal councils. But Faisal, there's a very important point. These elections don't matter as far as the end result is concerned. Can you remember Rajapaksa was winning every election up to the last, which was just a year ago before the Badula election. Prior to that, he was winning all the by-elections, and those elections were not by-elections, the local government elections, and those local government elections did not reflect in the final breakdown of the presidential election, because at that time people have a greater background, have looked at things in depth, and they know what to do. So I don't think the government should have, even if it did lose or will lose, it doesn't mean the end of the government. Government has 2 years more to run, 2.5 years more to run. So it's important that the government does have the elections, give the people the choice. Because on
what you appear to be championing is a need to be wide-angled.
Yes.
Whereas their approach appears to be tunnel vision.
Yes, tunnel vision is deadly for the government, because that issue alone can defeat the government at these coming elections. And the government and Faisal Mustafa, I don't know which side Faisal Mustafa will contest next time, because he's been contesting from so many different parties and different elections. But what matters to me is that government should have held elections at time. They could have lost, but they could have overcome that by subsequent conduct.
Now then, so there's pending, the word today, operative word today is pending. So there's pending doom, is there? What do you detect?
I think I would prefer to use that signal idiom, Obatara pute magak nete. No avenue of hope is open to you, son.
I see, but that's the terrible thing for us to be in.
Terrible.
Now then, pending doom, right? What impact, whilst that's on the one side, similarly we have on the other side, on the flip side almost, is the fallout of Bondgate. It's coming to an end, towards an end now. All public hearings have stopped, and the commissioners must be busying themselves, burning the midnight oil, hopefully, gentlemen, typing their report up. But what is the effect of the Honourable Prime Minister who came to, did I say Honourable? Dear Prime Minister, coming to the Commission. Chandrika Kumaratunga said, bravo, a historic occasion. Why is this historic?
Well, it is historic because the Prime Minister, I do not know in this country whether he has come before court and given evidence on any matter. So I think to that sense it's a landmark entry to courthouse by a Prime Minister, but it's a but in capitals, all capitals, because it turned Mr. Clean into Mr. Clean became Mr. Mysterious.
Mr. Clean, the metamorphosis was to Mr. What did you say?
Mr. Mysterious, and then to Mr. Evasive.
Right. Now if that was so, as in Chandrika Kumaratunga, President Chandrika Kumaratunga is saying that this was historic, bravo, here, and all that, okay? Then, Mr. Gomin Dayasiri, I want to ask you this. When President Kumaratunga was the President of Sri Lanka, she appointed a commission too. It was called the Battalanda Commission. The leader of the opposition then was summoned before that commission. The leader of the opposition's name was Ranil Wickremesinghe. Now, tell me, if one is so historically special, bravo and all that, as in the Bond appearance at the Bond Commission, then what's the Battalanda Commission?
Well,
what do you say about that?
Well, Battalanda Commission and the present Bond Commission had certain allegations, whether rightly or wrongly made against the Prime Minister. But what is interesting is this is not the fact. One has to look at the two earlier ministers who came, Kabir Hashim and Mr. Malik Samaravikrama. They gave statements and they were not cross-examined. Mind you, they were not cross-examined by the person who was leading the prosecution.
How do you say it in court? I want to remind our learned friend that our learned friend hasn't answered my question. My question being, what was so special about this one and not the other commission? Well,
this commission is a commission that affects the economy of the country. The other commission affects the question of acts of ethics and morals and good value structure.
Equally important.
But this is even more important because there was allegations made at the Prime Minister from the beginning and at the government and at various senior officials of the government, including some of its ministers.
Right.
Now, two of the ministers came to court and they gave evidence and they were not cross-examined. What does it mean? It means that the state accepts every word what they said.
Right.
And there were many queries that could have arisen, and mind you, I saw in the papers that Mr. Prasanna Jayawardena, one of the commissioners, did question the commissioners. But when it came to the state of Mr. Dapula Rivera, he just threw the hat and walked off. Now that was very unbecoming of a council because it means you accept in toto, the state accepts in toto whatever Malik Samaravikrama said, whatever Kabir Hashim said, and that is not correct. That is not correct ethics in law. Then came the case of the Prime Minister. Prime Minister was, I think, is very bold. He came, he accepted, he come, but we thought he'll be cross-examined. He was not. He was given a set of questions. Two sets of questions were given to him, which means that he could have fashioned the answer the way that he wants. You get a question in court, you get it suddenly, it comes from nowhere. It hits you like a bolt. But here he could have asked his legal advisors, he could have asked the political operators.
He could have potentially asked Mr. Mahendran too.
Of course, he could have asked him, though he did place the blame somewhat on Mr. Mahendran. He could have asked Aloysius, he could have asked everybody, he could have looked at files, he could have, so that you are not giving answers verbatim, you are giving out answers straight from your heart or from your head. You are giving prepared answers, doctored answers. Now that is not cross-examination, that is absolutely footloose cross-examination, or what you say, soft cross-examination. There was no, and furthermore, there was no cross-examination. Attorney General moved into the scene. I think Attorney General should have stayed out. He has been led an honourable life. He should have stayed out. He came there and got fouled. He
came under, I think they said that, or the impression that was created was that it is because of the protocol. Is there such a thing? That because he is the Prime Minister and so therefore a person, sort of a senior counsel for the Aegis Department wasn't allowed to
what happened, I think, was that it was led by the second most senior officer, Mr. Dapula Rivera, and he was reprimanded.
He wasn't the first, was he? The top man is not Dapula, it's Mr. Jayasuri.
Mr. Jayasuri is the second most. I think Dapula is the second most senior.
Yes, so, but then Mr. Jayasuri is the Attorney General. And then the man in the dock or in the witness box is the Prime Minister.
True, but in the case, it was Dapula Rivera who led the case, and he was number two. He was quite competent to do the case. But unfortunately, he was reprimanded by Prasanna Jayawardena, a very correct and a proper judge. And a reprimand by him was such that I would have never come to court thereafter. I would have lost face. And he lost face. I don't know whether it was that or some other reason. Mr. Jayasuri did come. Mr. Jayasuri has had a good record so far. Unfortunately, put his feet into this madness.
Well, can I offer an alternative thought process? The people that I've spoken to, members of the public, Mr. Dayasiri, they say to me, oh, come on, Dapula de Rivera would have would have completely taken apart his witness had he been allowed to cross-examine him.
Dapula Rivera should have taken first Samara Vikrama and the other minister.
But this is the whole trouble. Just because, this is the whole trouble with this, with our country and its systems. Because, when you talk about anything, they'll say, oh, well, it happened in the last government. Oh, well, it happened here, it happened there. Come on, that's not the answer. No. Just because they missed the boat with Kabir Hashim and Malik Samara Vikrama, an important boat, I do agree. But just because that happened doesn't mean that he must sit down in a peak of whatever rashness and say, well, I'm not cross-examining him.
I don't know.
Is that what happened?
I mean, a lawyer has to
But what does the grapevine say?
Grapevine says, I don't know what, I don't listen to the grapevine. I look at facts as it is.
Right.
Now here is definite evidence that he did not cross-examine the impact of it. Yeah. He's not a nobody. He's the second most senior legal officer in that state. He should have known the impact it created. And there is conduct on his part, and I think that is the consistent conduct. I'm not worried about all this, but I would say Dapula Rivera and Jayasuriya both have to take the blame, and what is I'm worried is the consequences of this. You can be sure that the report may be an excellent report. They will play with it. They'll play for years over it. They'll go back to base and they'll start at the bottom line.
So basically,
I think
basically the people who are the sort of doomsayers are going to be proved right, because nothing substantial will come out of this. The money will not be recovered, and some years from now, some rich list being compiled will hail these people as visionaries who did it all the hard way, and a lovely PR picture will be painted.
No, I think what will happen is that all this will be swept under the carpet. That is what is on. Because if the key persons after this are going to be Dapula Rivera and Jayasuriya, their conduct in this performance is so feeble, so softly handled, so footloose, I would say that nothing will. Another episode of a forgotten misery. So all that I can say is Sri Lanka is going to be the loser, and I think that word Obatapute Magaknate is what is the coming line, because if you look at it, there is Ranil Wickremesinghe, Mr. Clean, now Mr. Wasted. Now there will be Mahinda Rajapaksa, who did nothing from the opposition. There's Sirisena, who's trying to jump into whatever side that is going to become the winner. So I think all our politicians of a generation's past should retire and gracefully. Instead of that, they will be all in politics, and this country will have no new faces, new names, and we will go from misery to misery.
What a terrible state of affairs. It's so depressing that we need to go for a break. Don't go away. This is Newsline. We'll come back with some better news.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.